Hi guys, it's Luchi Ray here, getting ready to start a new character on Final Fantasy XIV. Thanks for joining me. Before I start, I just wanted to go over a couple of things. For those of you who already know me, you know that I was collaborating with some fellow players about a year ago, but due to some out-of-game situations, we were no longer able to keep our stream active. So I've decided to revive it as more of a personal guide through games for you and anyone else who might be new to the series or would like some help and entertainment through the game. Eventually, I'm going to feature some other games, especially since my boyfriend is hopefully going to be streaming soon. So we may start streaming some things like Stardew Valley, Minecraft, and maybe some Blizzard games. But Final Fantasy XIV is my main game of choice, and it's actually how he and I met. So it's definitely got a special place for me, and I wanted to share some of that fun with others. So most of my tutorials are going to be a little bit more down to earth. Just kind of going over the basics, and eventually once we start really diving into the story, it'll be more of a follow along the story with me sort of deal. But I really want to make sure that for people who are new to the series, that they understand how the game is set up, and that they are comfortable playing a game like this. This was actually my first MMO, and it was a little bit it was a lot to take on at once. I'd played plenty of RPGs before, but I'd never actually played something quite like this, and the interactions and the just all the details in this game. It was a little different than just playing on a console by myself. So just so you know, some of these streams are going to be actual streams on Twitch, while others that are more tutorial-like and have kind of a guide through some of the things are probably going to be pre-recorded and then uploaded onto YouTube. That way, if somebody's just wanting to hop on my stream and watch something fun, they won't be running into me giving some long dissertation about how to change their camera in the game. So for those of you who are new, obviously, as I've said, I want to help you guys through the game, so feel free to send me any questions or leave any comments you may have about the game or any other games I'm playing. But I definitely wanted to share this with you guys because I absolutely adore this game, and I know not everybody gets to play online games because of the subscription fee, but if you ever get the chance, it's definitely worth it. And you don't have to sit there and just pay monthly. You can you can buy it as a set, if you will, to where you can kind of pay for several months up front. That way you don't have to worry about that coming out every month. So maybe for Christmas one year, treat yourself to Final Fantasy XIV. Hopefully watching this, you'll maybe get the inkling to try it yourself, or at least enjoy following along the story. The story in this game is really amazing, and actually the opening movie is playing in the background now. That's the music you're hearing. So before I keep rambling though, I'm going to go ahead and get into this. I did want to mention real quick the most recent patch preview for those of you who are already playing the game. We are headed into patch 3.45. It's going to be released in a couple weeks on the 1st. There's going to be a new Palace of the Dead update, new rankings, and there's going to be a continuation of the Anima weapon for those of you who are not familiar with the game yet. This is end-game content. Although you can start the Palace of the Dead, I believe, at a lower level. I actually haven't got to play it myself, so some of those details are a little lost on me, but basically you get to quote-unquote level through the dungeon, and as you level through it, you receive special gear and things like that that you can wear once you're outside of the dungeon. And animal weapons are a continuation of the relic weapons, which are the highest geared weapons in the game. So, and they're very customizable compared to most of the weapons in the game, where most weapons come with preset stats, and when you have a relic weapon, you build it on your own, put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it, a lot of sanity into it actually. But you get to customize it at certain points, and it's very nice. It's very fulfilling. But before we actually jump into the game too, for those of you who are new, I wanted to let you guys kind of know what Final Fantasy XIV is if you haven't heard about a lot of it already. To make a really long story short, the Final Fantasy XIV that we know now is not the original release of the game. When Final Fantasy XIV came out, it was in 2010. It was pretty short-lived. The way it was set up, just it wasn't as fluid as it could have been, and it kind of went under after a while, and it eventually went out with a bang, quite literally. They had a meteor come crashing down to the earth, and when they revamped the game in 2013, anything that was originally part of that 1.0 version was considered part of the Calamity. When you start playing Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, that's the new edition that is now the base edition to the game. You are unable to play 1.0 anymore. The servers have been transferred over to all of the characters from those have been kept actually, but the maps and everything are different than what they used to be. And but the lore is still there, so we basically pick up where they left off. And as you can see on the Lodestone website, there's a link to some information about the Calamity that you can actually obtain before you start playing the game, because most of this is learned through some of the special raids and through the storyline as you progress. So if you'd like a little heads up about what was going on before you enter the game, enter the story, this is kind of what was going on. Anything in the base edition of the game is called A Realm Reborn. It starts as 2.0 and goes from there. And so far as there's just the one expansion, and of course that starts at 3.0, which is why this current patch that we're going into is called 3.45, because what Square Enix does is you've got your base game, and then if you're not familiar with the way MMOs operate, what they do is every couple months or so they'll add a little bit of new content into the game, and it's called a patch. So we're up to 3.45, and when we hit next summer, they're actually going to bring in the next expansion, and that's where they drop a lot of new maps, several new dungeons just off the bat, usually new jobs that you can play. And that newest expansion is going to be called Stormblood. As you can see, it was just released, and again, that's going to be summer of 2017. So we've already had one expansion, but we're definitely excited for the new one. I don't want to ruin anything, but it's just there's so much good stuff going on with the story, and a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of teasers that are going on right now regarding some of the characters in the story. So we definitely are looking forward to finding out what's going on. But this game will definitely keep you busy. Even if you are a hardcore player and you push through content pretty quickly, anytime I make a new character, even if I skip all the cutscenes, which it's hours and hours of videos in this game, just the quality is amazing too, I might add. But they always have a lot of content outside of the cutscenes. There's a lot of exploring to do it will still take you days of just nonstop playing just to get to level 50, and that's if you know where you're going and if you've skipped all your cutscenes. So for somebody who is brand new to the game, it may take you a few months just to, or a couple months at least, to get to Heavensward content, and from there, you know, it'll be a little longer to get through the rest of that. And obviously once you get to the current level cap, which is level 60, there's a lot of raids to do. The current one is Alexander. There are 12 floors, and there is a casual raid that currently has 2 parts, and the third will be released very soon. There's this Palace of the Dead thing here that gives you some great weapons that you can obtain through grinding through that, which you can solo, by the way. You can do it by yourself instead of just rushing around through the game and grinding out for special items later on. But there's just lots of different aspects to this game. There's PvP. It's not as popular, but there's PvP, and they recently came out with one-on-one PvP just for kegs. But most of it's kind of like team versus team, capture the flag sort of things. It's fun, but to me, I like to focus more on the story and getting the new shiniest weapons. So what I'm going to do for you guys is I'm going to kind of show you how to set up a clean, efficient game, and how to progress through the story and just kind of have some fun along the way. So with that, I just want to show you guys a couple of websites that are pretty helpful. Obviously, this is the Lodestone. It's I'm in North America, so it's na.finalfantasy14.com/lodestone, and from there there's different topics and news and notices, and these are the sorts of things you first see when you log into the game. The launcher actually has links to all of these things, so every time you log into the game, you know if there's going to be maintenance or if there's going to be you know, a patch coming out soon. Obviously there's been a couple of things here recently because we just had a new minor patch come in. We just had 3.4 not too long ago that actually had a decent amount of content. It was the final 4 floors to Alexander, and the feast was kind of coming to an end. That's a special type of PvP that I haven't even tried yet, but I hear it's really, really fantastic if you like to play PvP. But anyway, so this is the main website via Square Enix itself, who are the makers of the game. One of my other favorites is the Gamer Escape Final Fantasy page. This one's really helpful if you get into crafting and gathering. You can actually click on recipes, and you can search the recipes, or you can go through here by name and just kind of eyeball them. Obviously there are several thousand articles that you can sift through and explore, but if you ever come across a recipe and you're not sure what all is included in it, because I have people tell me all the time, if I need somebody to make me gear or something, they'll say, oh, well, I need you to bring me the materials and then I'll make it for you. And I'm like, I don't have any idea what materials you need, because I'm not the crafter, obviously. And you can just come on here and, you know, click on whatever they are, or just come up here in the search and hit that. And there's all kinds of other breakdowns for different jobs and different events and battles and those sorts of things. But honestly, when it comes to story and job info, I prefer the console games wiki page. It's super helpful for clicking through. The navigation is just, it's fantastic. It's just laid out really easy to understand. If you click on a job, you can learn the lore behind it, kind of the style, the requirements, like where you start the job. It lists all the actions information, which is actually included in the game under your play guide, but it's just nice to kind of have this if you want to study it out of game, or just need a quick reference if you're like in an instance on a different job and you can't pull up the traits for another job. You can just quickly come on here and look them up. It even lists the PvP actions, because there's specific PvP actions that you can only use in PvP. So if you weren't familiar with these, which I'm not familiar with at all, you can come in here and get some information on that as well. It even tells you where to pick up quests, which I absolutely love, because for the most part your quest giver for your class or your job is always going to be in the same place, but every once in a while they change. Like here you start off in the pillars, but then every time you go back it's at the foundation. But then at level 50 all of a sudden we're going to a different area, and then we go back to the foundation for the rest of them. So obviously there's a gap in levels here. Every class you go for every 5 levels until you hit 50 for the next quest for your new skills and whatnot. But once you hit 50, you get an additional quest to complete, and then it's every 2 levels. So when you've been out leveling for a really long time and you need to go back to your quest giver, there's several maps in this game, and you may not always remember where your next quest is going to be. So I find this page really helpful, because I can come back here and say, okay, I'm level 54 now, where do I go? And there's even a quick reference to a guide in case you don't have access to someone, or a video that gives a good quick introduction to a good skill rotation. These are pretty decent rotations here that you can use if you're interested in learning how to play your job, which is highly recommended. You want to utilize your class the best that you can. Otherwise you're probably going to have some problems in your game, but definitely recommend this site. It even has tips on the big bosses later on. But before I ramble on too much about a whole bunch of different aspects about the game, let's go ahead and jump into Final Fantasy. And I'm going to go ahead and skip that before it gets too much into that movie, because there may be some spoilers since I have the Heavensward edition. And I'm going to go ahead and pause this video for the sake of space and for the sake of time. You may not have time to continue watching anymore, so I'm going to leave off here. This was just a brief introduction and backstory to the game, and in this next segment I'm going to go ahead and show you how to pick a data center and how to build a character, and then possibly go into some layout settings from there. So feel free to stretch your legs, grab a snack, or turn me off and tune me out until next time. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you here in a bit.